What is good, y'all? It's your boy Kia Orion, the man who is obsessed with making dope music and teaching you how to make your own. And in today's video, I'm going to teach you how to make vocals like this.
When I need somebody, you there when I need somebody. How long can you afford me? I know you wanna be somebody.
If that sounds dope to you, stick around and we're going to show you exactly how to do it, all the knobs and switches that you have to tweak in order to make it happen. But if you want to get the template, you can check it out in the description below. I'll have that posted up so that way you can just buy it if you don't want to worry about it and just throw it on, make your vocals sound dope. Without further ado, let's jump into the computer and I'll show you exactly what it takes to make this sound. See you there. Hey, 1 2 1 2, what is going on, y'all? It is your boy Kia Orion, the man who is obsessed with making dope music and teaching you how to make your own. And in this tutorial, I'm going to teach you how I went about recreating some Party Next Door type vocals. So this is the track that I used for inspiration. Loyal, and I pretty much remade the beat with my own spin. Obviously I changed a bunch of things, but I kind of took some of those same drums, same ideas, same vibes, and this is what I came up with.
Want you, are you mine enough? Hey? With me, do we shine enough? Hey? Too many got them lining up. Too many know they got diamonds for you.
So that's what I'm going to teach you how to do, is how to recreate this type of a vibe, all the different things going into it, explain the creative process. So if you're ready to rock and roll, put aside some time, get your beverage of choice, and let's jump into it. Boom, boom. Okay, so as always, these templates that I make for you guys, you can find in the description below if you want to check it out. So it's pretty much already pre-made for you, ready to rock and roll. But if you want to save yourself the time and the hassle, you can do it, or you can just follow along and I'll show you how I did it. So as always too, all the plugins that I'll be using for this tutorial, they're Waves. They're from the Waves Gold bundle. But a lot of these, all of them except for this SSLE channel are in the Waves Gold bundle. But I want you to know that even if you don't have the template or you don't have Waves, you can absolutely do this in your stock, with your stock plugins. You just gotta kind of might make a couple tweaks depending on what DAW you have. But this template will work in any of your DAWs because it's third-party plugins. So I'm going to turn off our doubles and our ad-libs for now so that we can just focus on our main vocals. And I'm going to walk you through it. Also, this goes without saying, but because your boy ain't a singer like that, auto-tune for show. And I got the auto-tune settings cranked on some Party Next Door all the way, retune speed to 0. This is the key of my song, and some softy effects. So let's jump into this. This is what it sounds like without the template.
Want you.
Whoops. Helps if I'm in the right one. This is what it sounds like without it.
Want you, are you mine enough? Hey? With me, do we shine enough? Hey?
And this is with it.
Want you, are you mine enough? Hey? With me, do we shine enough? Hey?
So let's go through these one by one and go through the different creative choices. So if you've seen any of my tutorials before, you know what I'm about when it comes to mixing vocals. It's really about your subtractive EQ and how important that is to clean things up. You don't need all the fancy plugins and stuff. It really comes down to good subtractive EQ and some knowing how to use compression, and then we can get into the fancy stuff later. But really focus on your EQ. So that's what I did here. Put in a Q10, which means it has 10 bands. And I also think it's important, if you want to train your ear to not have one of the visual EQs at first, like not have an EQ REQ6 or like a Pro Q2 or whatever like that. I mean, you can use it if you want, but I find it helpful just to work on my ear if I'm not seeing what is going on. So pretty much the way that then I'll go through this is, these are resonant frequencies that I found in my voice, and pretty much let's go like this. Let's load up a Q10 down here, and I'll show you what I did. So this is kind of, this is the process. So if we're going to turn off the template. So this is a new Q10 for me. You want to scan for resonant frequencies. So pretty much you play your track and then you go through.
Want you, are you mine enough? Hey? With me, do we shine enough?
You turn the Q pretty, you don't have to go super tight with it, but you're going to go through and just like scan what sounds whack.
Want you, are you mine enough? Hey? With me, do we shine enough? Hey? Too many got them lining up, too many know they got diamonds for you.
Like right in there.
Want you, I'm not giving up, hey? Everything that we've been through.
You can feel it sounds almost like it's like a whistling kind of sound. The higher up you go in the frequency spectrum, it's gonna sound like whistling. So that's what I did here. A bunch of little small cuts. Again, mixing is a bunch of small decisions Small subtle changes added up over time. I added this to you because your voice is going to be at a different place than mine, is this low cut knob. So, hey, come back here. Is this kind of low cut knob, so you can kind of roll off however much or how little, because your voice is going to be, I have a high voice because I haven't hit puberty yet, but hopefully soon I will, and this you can crank up or lower depending on where your voice is at. So that's what this EQ is. You're going to need to tweak this for your own voice, whatever's going in there, but that makes it easy to kind of low cut depending on as you go through the song, maybe you want to bring in more lows, whatever. So that's a low cut knob. The next thing we're going to jump into is the first piece of this SSL channel. So this is the one plugin that I recommend from Waves that is not going to be in your Waves Gold bundle. And this is it's a recreation of the old kind of analog SSL channel. And it has an EQ on this side and then a compressor over here and a gate over here. I'm just going to tackle the EQ first, and we're going to jump into compression here in a second. Before I get too technical with all these terms, know that these are pretty much doing the exact same thing that these are doing, but it's just visualized a little bit differently. So it starts with the low and works your way to the highs. Go figure. So this down here, I'm cutting maybe 60 Bs. I'm cutting like a decent amount down here. This is kind of in this like 300 range, 275, 290, somewhere in there. So this is the range. What I'll do is I'll show you by throwing the dB all the way up so you can hear what the actual sound is that I'm cutting out. Because again, these are small, subtle changes where just using headphones or monitors, you might say, Kia, was there a big difference? There was. You just might have missed it if you're watching on your phone. Excuse me. So this is the frequency I'm cutting out here.
Want you or you man enough?
Helps if you turn it on.
Want you or you man enough?
You hear that? Again, it's like, I'm like, that is no bueno. So I've got, again, around in here, I just kind of dialed it down where I said, okay, that's
Want you or you man enough? With me to shine.
And here, this is your cue, how thin of a band or not you want. And this is about, again, probably around that same -4, and this is in this frequency. Watch your ears.
Want you or you man enough?
Not about that. Not about that. Cut that joint out. Cut that joint out. We don't need that.
Want you or you man enough? With me to shine.
And again, same around, kind of a similar cue, not super narrow, but not super wide as well, kind of in here. And this one's super whack.
Want you or you.
Yeah, I won't play that one for you super long, but around that 3K, kind of 3.5 to 4.5 range, especially I have a lot of S's in this song. You haven't seen them yet, but it's going to get really S-y. So I especially wanted to kind of take some joints out there. I'm boosting the slightest bit in this kind of top range. This part isn't super important, but around like 12K, between like 8K to 12K, 14K in there, you can get a little bit of presence. So I did that. Rolled off the lows, rolled off the slightest bit of highs, and that is the EQ in a nutshell with the first Q10 and the EQ from this SSL, and then we're going to jump into the next stage when I talk about mixing, which is compressing and de-essing. So let's jump into that now. Moving right along, we've got the compression part of the SSL channel. So this is where the way this channel works is this: you could use your H compressor or your regular compressor, whatever it is. What matters is this part over here that you're going to see is these lights kind of tell you how much like the gain reduction is kind of going on in terms of how much it's really compressing it. So this would be like you'll see as I tweak this yellow light will start to trigger. And so what you're looking for on your compressor as you turn your threshold up or down, however your compressor looks, is your compressor will have probably like a little switch, like a little thing that'll show you like how much compression is happening. And that's what this is telling me, is how much compression I'm getting. And so I shoot for normally like -3 or like 3 to 6, somewhere in there. So that's what I'm shooting for, is this little yellow light to light up.
Want you or you man enough? With me.
But if we crank this, so this threshold, which I put over here as presence, which you'll see, the more we turn this up, the more the vocal becomes quote unquote present, but it also, you can feel it kind of starting to smush it. So check it out.
Want you or you man enough? With me to shine enough, too many got them lining.
So you can see how much bolder that light is compared to now if we bring it back down.
Want you or you man enough? With me to shine enough, too many got them lining up, too many. Know they got diamonds for you. Want you, I'm not giving up, everything that we've been through.
So you can kind of control that with this knob if you want. Just kind of makes it easy as you go through. You might want to bring this in or back depending on how you're feeling. But I found that around that was kind of good for me.
Want you, are you mine enough, hey? With me, do we shine enough, hey? Too many got them lying.
And I have a pretty, not a kind of medium attack and release. This is the fast attack knob. I didn't feel like I really wanted some fast attack on this. You know, relatively medium release, not super fast, not super slow, and about a 4-to-1 ratio, which is a decent amount of compression. And this is pretty much, this button tells you channel out whether you want the EQ to happen before the compressor or the compressor to happen before the EQ. And I felt that I just felt I liked it better with this. So that's with the SSLE channel. Again, if you don't have it, don't worry about it. All this is doing is bring up another kind of compressor that you have and make sure that you aren't slamming it, but that you're getting, you know, a little bit of decent compression there, kind of catching peaks and starting to compress the vocal a little bit. However, since we are starting to compress the vocal, those S's are really jumping out at me, starting to bother me. I'm also hearing other frequencies now that I want to EQ more, but we'll jump into that in a second. So this de-esser, come on, buddy, is your standard waves de-esser. And I've put this over here to this knob because this will change depending on how much or how little you want your S's to come through. And this is where you change the frequency. And normally it's like between that, like for me, I find between like that, like 4K to like 55, like 4K to like 5.5K, somewhere in there is where my S's tend to land, S's and T's. So I'll dial this in now. Another one of Kia's, here, I'll show you here in a second. I'm ignoring one of my own pieces of wisdom right now because I'm mixing in a silo, but we'll talk about that in a second. I want to show you guys this. So this is pretty much telling you how much this de-esser is. This is just another compressor, straight up. It's just a very specific kind of honed in compressor on this type of frequency.
Want you, are you mine enough, hey? With me, do we shine enough, hey? Too many got them lining up, too many. Know they got diamonds for you. Want you, I'm not giving up, hey?
So let's bring it back. Bring it back one time and listen to it with the beat.
Want you, are you mine enough, hey?
Another is on the hook of this song. It's really S-y, so this is probably a better place to test this out.
You're one of those types.
Nope, that's not it.
When you need somebody, I'm there when you need somebody. How long can I afford you? You know I wanna be somebody. When I need somebody, you're there when I need somebody. How long can you afford me? I know you wanna be somebody.
Again, you don't want it to sound like you have a lisp, even though Party's vocals and Drake's, they de-ess pretty hard. So since I'm following that kind of a vibe in this one, I'm de-essing these pretty tight. I'm keeping those S's pretty tight. But that's kind of the first intro to the de-ess, to the compression and the de-essing, at least for the first part. So we're going to continue on and then continue to kind of rein those S's in as we go. So moving on to the next part. Let's get it. Okay, so the next piece is this Q10. And this is going to be another EQ. And again, I'm pulling out crazy. I like to EQ again. This is just kind of my style, my method. I like to EQ again after I do the compression piece. But you really, before you add effects and stuff, you should be feeling good about your vocal. And again, a lot of this you can do while the beat is playing. I like to do my first EQ without the beat and the first compressor probably without the beat too, maybe sometimes with the beat just to kind of figure it out. But then as we start to continue on now, it's really important that we start to listen to the vocals with the beat, because we can get a perfect vocal, but if it doesn't fit with the beat itself, we're kind of missing the mark. So with this EQ, again, it's all subtractive. I'm not boosting anything. I'm just taking out a bunch. These are just all wacky frequencies because I record in my bedroom and it has like all the worst things for recording. So it's just a ton of bad frequencies. But I assume a lot of you probably aren't recording in like perfect studios. So get nice with your EQ, subtractive EQ. Really it is. Engineering is just about fixing problems. But moving right along from this EQ, I didn't attach this to anything over here. This is when we start to get into some fun stuff. So when I was looking online, I found a thread of a guy who actually worked on Party's vocals before. and he said there were a couple things that he did. He said the first thing that he did was he talked about the way that he was able to kind of expand the vibe of the vocals by like some detuning, which I'm going to talk to you about here in a second. He also talked about a little bit of like warm distortion and some like simple EQ tips. So what we're going to jump into now is really how we're going to start to craft that kind of Party Next Door sound. Right now we have a good sounding vocal with a lot of the crap taken out. Now we're going to start kind of teasing it out. So with party stuff as well, I'm going to turn these off for now so we can do one at a time. He doesn't have a ton of delay, like that's really noticeable, like a long fourth note delay, but he definitely has an eighth note delay, which adds to kind of like his reverb sound. The reverb and delay kind of work together in tandem. So that's what I've added here is in your eighth note delay. This is an H delay. You can, if you want to copy these settings, you can. Feedback to 0, dry wet all the way up, because we're running this as a parallel chain, meaning these aren't fully dry signals, so we can kind of bring them in with the lo-fi and then a little bit of this low pass engaged. So this is the eighth delay. Again, another thing that I recommend is when you're adding effects to your vocals, it's easier to have them go pretty full bore with it and then dial it back, then try to like slowly like bring it in and be like, can I hear it yet? Can I hear it yet? I always go over the top, just go super crazy and then dial it back in. So this is with the eighth delay.
When I need somebody, you there when I need somebody. How long can you afford me? I know you wanna be somebody. When you need somebody, I'm there when you need somebody.
So let's hear it without that. Let's get it. Let's get it.
When I need somebody, you.
This feels like it's not working. Why is that? Let me pause this for a second. I don't think this is working. Wow, it's so much easier if it's actually on. I was like, why does this not work? If you turn your plugins on, they work a lot better. Let's pretend that didn't happen. I'm not even going to edit that out, but we're going to pretend I graduated high school. So this is the eighth delay on. Boom.
When I need somebody, you there when I need somebody. How long can you afford me? I know you wanna be somebody. When you need somebody, I'm there when you need somebody. How long can
I also set these macro knobs up because as you start to add more effects, you're going to want to come back in and probably tweak these because they might become more apparent or less as you go. So this just makes it super easy with these macros. So that's a little bit of eighth delay we got going on. And then next I have the fourth note delay. Very similar setup as the last one, but this one's a quarter note rather than an eighth note. So the same thing, dry wet all the way up. Excuse me. This is your, I didn't put this one over here because there's not a lot of this in the Party Next Door vibes. So I wanted it there in case you wanted to put it. This is a very typical delay in a lot of kind of modern pop, R&B, rap vocals, but just dial this one into taste. This one isn't super important for the Party Next Door vibes.
When I need somebody, you there when I need somebody.
Whoa, what we're getting into next is the short verb. This one I have over here with this button. And this is a plate reverb. This pretty much just puts the vocals in a space. They feel like they're in a room. When I listen to Party stuff, it feels like it's, in Drake too, like a lot of modern vocals, even though you won't hear this reverb per se, you'll feel it. It just kind of puts the reverb in a space. I can't explain it better than that, but you'll see what I mean. So I go to, this is a stock reverb that I just tweaked a little bit with the time. But this is just a vocal plate reverb. You can find any type of vocal plate reverb. That's what this one is. This is just your plate reverb. But I put in here short verb so it's easier to remember. This is it again. We're going super, gonna dial it back.
When I need somebody, you there when I need somebody. How long can you afford?
This one is really nuanced, so I am gonna solo this one for you so you can hear it.
When I need somebody, you there when I need somebody. How long can you afford me? I know you wanna be somebody.
You know what I mean? It's not really like a reverb for real, but it's just, it puts it in a room.
When I need somebody.
So that way you actually know what it is. And now we're gonna play it with the beat again so we can dial it in. Because again, it doesn't matter how it sounds by itself.
Want you or you mind enough, hey? With me, do we shine enough, babe? Too many got them lining up, too many. Know they got diamonds for you. Want you, I'm not giving up, babe. Everything that we been through, babe. Too many got them lining up, too many. Know they got diamonds for you. When I need somebody, want you, are you mine enough, babe? With me, do we shine enough, babe? Too many.
Cool. This is the serious reverb. This one's over here is long verb. This one is your hall. This is a bigger reverb with a little bit of pre-delay. It's pretty big verb, pretty long decay time. When I listen to PND's vocals, it's a shame because of copyright. I can't play his vocals here to A-B them, but listen to Loyal and then listen to your track or listen to this one. And you'll see that he has a long reverb tail that it just feels like they take up space and it almost like it's a presence, but it's not a super bright reverb tail. Like his whole vocals, all of his vocals aren't really bright. They're very different than a Tory Lanez vocals were really bright on the high end. His, and this is something I'm going to talk about in a second, almost like fit in this nice kind of mid space. So that's what I did here. And because of that, I also EQ'd the vocals. I EQ'd the reverb so you can get a feel for it here.
Want you, are you mine enough, babe?
So Tory's would probably be over like here.
Want you, are you mine enough, babe? With me, do we shine enough, babe? Too many got them.
You know, like that's Tory's vocals are really bright. This one lives, I put it right around in here because this is where we want it. We also have a low cut on these because if we listen to just the reverb itself, we don't want all that low kind of muddiness on here. So check this out. I just wanted kind of that like higher. I wanted a little bit higher, but not super bright. And I also want to cut the lows out so it doesn't get muddy. And then the last thing I did was side chained the reverb to the vocals. So this is super slight, but pretty much what this does is when the vocals are triggered, it will duck the reverb out so that it makes it a little bit less muddy. And then when the vocals are not in, it allows the reverb to fully expand. So it's almost like this. It's almost like a gated reverb to your vocals. It's just side-chained reverb to your vocals. Super fancy terms. This is not super important at all. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. But that's what this is doing. Just the slightest bit.
Want you, are you mine enough, babe? With me, do we shine enough, babe? Too many got them lining up, too many. Know they got diamonds for you. Want you, I'm not giving up, babe. Everything that we been through, babe. Too many got them lining up.
We're coming along. Next is the doubler. And this is not one that I put over here because this is, again, a very slight effect. This is simple doubler 2 from Waves, but take your direct out if you use it. Make sure you take out this direct line. And this is just to help widen things a little bit, but again, I'm not going overboard with this one. So
want you, are you mine enough, babe?
That's full blast.
Want you, are you mine enough, babe? With me, do we shine enough, babe?
You want to A-B it and almost have it be almost like you can't even tell it's there, but you can feel it.
Want you, are you mine enough, babe? With me, do we shine enough, babe? Too many got them lining up, too many. Know they got diamonds for you. Want you, are you mine enough, babe? With me, do we shine enough, babe? Too many got them lining up.
Real subtle, but I find it helps just kind of spread the vocals a little bit. This joint is where we're really starting to hit that Party Next Door vibe. So remember when I was telling you that I should find it and bring it up on the next piece of this video, the actual thread that I found where he talked about it. But this is where I'm starting to detune the vocals so that it has that kind of Party Next Door signature sound. I used the meta flanger and used this chorus medium and then added this to the widen knob. So this is it. If it's all the way cranked again, this is kind of what it feels like.
Want you, are you mine enough, babe? With me, do we shine enough, babe? Too many got them lining up, too many. Know they got diamonds for you. Want you, I'm not giving up, babe. Everything that we been through, babe. Too many got them lining up, too many. Know they got diamonds for you. When I need somebody, you there when I need somebody.
So that's cool. I like that a lot. You can dial that into taste. I just like weird effects on my vocals. And then this one, the last piece is there's this analog distortion and kind of his vocals are slightly distorted. I believe that the guy said in the thread he used like in Fruity Loops it was like a blood drive saturator or something. I don't really know, but I found this distortion pedal in the Waves plugins. Again, this comes with it, and so I'm blasting this distortion pretty hard, but keeping the it's very, I'm like, the actual distortion itself, I'm pushing the limits to, but I'm actually only dialing in the slightest bit on the actual dry wet. You wouldn't probably even be able to tell. It just adds a little bit of that kind of like distortion, a little bit of that like kind of analog, still kind of like analog warmth to it in a way.
Want you, are you mine enough? Hey? With me, do we shine enough? Hey? Too many got them lining up, too many.
And that here you can go crazy if you want. Another, this could be cool too, is if you want to add, if you wanted to automate this. So there's a point at the end of the song where I do think it'd be cool to automate this if it was here.
When I need somebody, you're one of those types. Calling me, staying up all night. So down, not gonna switch sides. Know how I really treat a man right.
I think it'd be cool. So this could be fun. If you wanted to automate this knob, you could get some really dope effects going. Yeah, so that's kind of the first row of effects. Now we're gonna jump into the last piece of this, these last pieces of the effects before we get you out of here. Okay, so when it comes to the next piece of this vocal, I wanted to pull this up for you guys so you could see where I got this information from. This is a Gear Sluts forum. The guy talked about, he said, how do you make these PARTYNEXTDOOR vocals? And this guy named Joseph Reeves said, yo, I actually worked with him back in 2013, 2014. He talked about putting his voicemail EQ on, not at 100%, take some of the lower end, boost some mids, and that he put that on his lead vocal. And he was also the one who talked about kind of tuning, like the strange thing with the flanger and the distortion as well. But I was like, okay, so how can we recreate that? And so what we did here is on this next band, I had a parallel split because I was running out of spots. And again, the reason I parallel split this is because we don't want this EQ, we don't want this banded EQ, this kind of telephonic EQ to be on full blast, because again, we're going to lose too much in here, but we want this to be a parallel split so we can kind of mix some of this vibe in. So that's what I did here is, let's solo these vocals again real quick, is so that this is with this band, it's a Q8.
You're one of those types, calling me, want you, are you mine enough? Hey? With we shining up, hey. Too many got them lining up, too many. Know they got diamonds for you. Want you, I'm not giving up, hey. Everything that we've been through, babe.
Super subtle.
Want you, are you mine enough, hey.
And this isn't, this doesn't have any knobs that it's put to, or this either. This is a parallel compressor that I put in here if you wanted to add some parallel compression to your vocals, which is why it's super smashed. But this is only if you need it. So I always like to have parallel compression there, but I'm gonna do this kind of at the end of my chain, if at all, to see if it really needs it, if I feel like it really needs some more power. So I put this in here for you, but if you are gonna use it, just use it wisely, because this is gonna give you a lot of power on your vocals, and this is super smush compressed vocal. So if you need a little boost, this is here for you, but not necessary. The next piece is this C4. I love this pop vocal preset, and then I edit it. So I always choose this pop vocal preset because it brings up these kind of highs that I feel like I wanted that make the vocal maybe a little bit more, gives a little bit more presence. But I didn't want it to bring up the lows, not a ton on the mids. So if you don't know much about multi-band compression, pretty much it's if you imagine, it's like the opposite of a de-esser. So a de-esser is compression, but it's on one super specific band and only one frequency. This is a compressor, but you can have multiple bands that you choose how much or you want them or not compressed. So each one of these bands, right, has its own little threshold knob, has its own gain reduction or addition, range, attack, and release. So these settings, I didn't mess with too much, maybe a little bit on the threshold here and there, but this is without and with the C4 enabled.
Want you, are you mine enough, hey? With me, do we shine enough, hey? Too many got them lining up, too many. Know they got diamonds for you. Want you, I'm not giving up, babe. Everything that we been through, babe. Too many got them lining up. Too many know they got downs for you.
So I feel like this really brings out some of the clarity in the vocal. Unfortunately, that's not exactly like a Party Next Door vibe because, like we said, his feels kind of very tucked, but I just felt like without it, I wanted a little bit more, just a little bit more kind of push on this high end. However, because we push the high end as well with the other parts of the effects and stuff, these S's are really starting to bother me. So the last piece is this sibilance plugin. So what this is this is kind of like a fancy de-esser. Any type of de-esser could do exactly what this is doing. But you choose, if you notice this band, it's going to tell you, again, this is kind of how much or how little like you want to actually include. So if the waveform, I'll show you.
Want you, are you mine enough, hey? With me, do we shine enough, hey?
You can really close it in on that waveform, and then this is how much the reduction is. And this is like, there's going to be pretty much just S's. This is a little bit more open. This is more like S's, T's, and other things. So that's why I left it like kind of like around in here. You'll have to dial this into taste for whatever works for you. And then wide mode or split mode. Again, I just keep it in wide, and I use this look ahead. I find this works a little better for me. And then this is how much or how little you want it to duck the S's out. Again, we don't want to sound like we have a lisp. So I'll play it and then kind of dial this into taste.
Want you, are you mine enough, hey? With me, do we shine enough, hey?
Right there.
Too many got them lining up, too many know they got downs for you. Want you, I'm not giving up, hey? Everything that we been through, babe. Too many got them lining up, too many know they got downs for you. When I need somebody, you there when I need somebody. How long can you afford me? I know you wanna be somebody. When you need somebody.
So that feels about right to me. It's not it's maybe sounding a little lispy, but not super lispy. Like those S's are pretty crushed. When I listen back, again, because I'm using that Party Next Door track as my reference, I can't play it in here because of copyright, but I'll A/B it back and forth, and I'll get my S's to sound kind of the same as Party. Or if I'm doing this, if I'm recreating, a Drake template or something, the OVO engineers and those OVO vibes, they crush the S's pretty hard. So I always use your reference track so that you have an idea of what you're shooting for, what you want to accomplish. So that's the main vocal chain. But now we have the doubles, which is a bit of a different vocal chain, different vocal template, and that's what I'm going to walk you through right now. Okay, so the next piece of this is the doubles. So I haven't been playing these doubles or ad-libs along with you, but this is the hook with the doubles and the ad-libs.
When I need somebody, you there when I need somebody. How long can you afford me? I know you wanna be somebody.
So let's take these ad-libs off, and I'll show you how I made these doubles. So these are really similar to the one before, the rack before, except with some slight changes. So the Q8, again, this is pretty much the same. Just came a lot of subtractive EQ. And then here I did an R compressor. So that's what I did to the macro over here is the glue, which is the attack. This is going to just feel, you're going to play these with the beat and the vocals and kind of figure out where this feels right for your own vocals. For me, it was kind of around here, relatively fast attack. Again, the de-esser, self-explanatory, how much or not you want that de-essed. This SSL channel, again, with your compression, this is kind of a presence. This is the kind of more of a presence with the compression. Maybe that might be a better name for it so you understand, but that's how you can think about it. All right, so this one's brightness. This is when we start to be a little different. So I put up this EQ6 for the doubles because I found that his doubles, they have a lot of kind of like, they really have a lot of presence. They stand out. They have a lot of sheen. They have a lot of effects to them as well. And so as you can tell with the other vocal, I only did a little bit of boosting with the SSL, but not much else. Here I put the macro to this kind of last brightness piece. So you can kind of choose how bright or not you want those to be. Be careful with this because the more you go up, the more it's going to bring your S's and T's out, but depends on your voice. And then this is when we get into the fun part. So this S1 imager is I assigned this macro down here to wideness, depending on how much or not, how wide or not. This is a simple S1 imager. Pretty much it just pushes the vocals farther out to the sides so they don't compete as much with the main vocal. So that's kind of what this looks like.
When I need somebody, you there when I need somebody. Can you afford me? I know you wanna be somebody.
So you kind of can choose this to taste. You can choose how wide or not you want them to be.
When I need somebody, you there when I need somebody.
It's up to you. You can play with that depending on what you want. Dial that in. Again, your delay. This is a simple fourth note delay. As I just copied the exact same one from the other rack. Macroed at this knob, the dry and wetness. Dry wet knob. Reverb. This is again the plate reverb. I kept very similar. This is the long verb. And as you can tell, I have this cranked up pretty high. I wanted these doubles to really feel spacey. And when I listen to Party's vocals, his doubles take up a lot of space as well. They're very present. So I put the reverb there with the macro for the dry wet knob, so you can kind of tune that in how much you want or not. Same doubler as before for a little bit of that choir effect, and then this is when we have fun with the doubles. So as you can tell, this is cranked. This is the meta flanger from before as well. Ampex 4.4. This is a preset I found I liked, and then this Mondo mod, which fluttering, that joint fluttering, which is just a cool kind of crazy flanger chorusy effect that like detuned vibes that I heard on his. So this is what just this piece sounds like.
When I need somebody, you're there when I need somebody. Can you afford me? I know you wanna be somebody.
So it depends on how much of that you want.
Somebody, you're there when I need somebody.
Again, these are effects you're going to want to dial in while you got your other vocals going too.
When I need somebody, you're there when I need somebody. How long can you afford me? I know you wanna be somebody. When you need somebody, I'm there when you need somebody. How long can I afford you? You know I wanna be somebody. Want you, are you mine enough? Hey, with me, do we shine enough? Hey, too many got them lining up. Too many know they got diamonds for you. Want you, I'm not giving up. Hey, everything that we been through, babe. Too many got them lining up. Too many know they got diamonds for you. When I need somebody, you there when I need somebody. How long can you afford me? I know you wanna be somebody.
So have fun with that. This is also included in the main template as well. I'll include this. This is the doubles template. So that is how I found to get those Party Next Door vocals. This song, you know, my cover, quick self-plug. You can find this you'll be able to find this on YouTube, Spotify, wherever, because it's your boy's remix. So everything is original, even if the concept and idea is the same. Appreciate you tuning in. Let's go. Check this out. Hope you dig. Thank you for tuning in. As always, if you want me to cover or create another template for something that you're interested in, let me know and I'll cook it up for you. Appreciate you. Yeah, check you on the next one. Everything you want can be in the description below. Peace.